So you want to automate modern networks? Well, you've got to master JSON. We're not just talking about a file format here. We're talking about the fundamental language of network APIs. And in this explainer, we're going to treat it like the mission-critical skill it is. Let's jump in.
Okay, this quote right here really sets the stage. Look, CSV files are fine. They're great for simple, flat lists of stuff. But modern networks? They just don't speak that language. If you want to talk to a Meraki dashboard, a Nexus switch, or your NetBox instance, you have to speak their language. And that language is JSON.
And here's why. On the left, you see a CSV. It's flat. One row, one thing. Simple. But network data, on the right, it's got layers. It's hierarchical. A single device has multiple interfaces, and each of those interfaces has its own set of properties. It's nested, and that's exactly where a simple format falls apart, and JSON just shines.
So, before we get into all that complex nested stuff, let's solve the #1 trip-up for basically everyone starting with JSON and Python. It's the whole loads versus loads thing. I promise, after the next 60 seconds, you are never going to get this wrong again.
Here it is, the simple S trick. You see that little S on the end of loads and dumps? It stands for one thing and one thing only, string. That's it. It's not plural, it's not some weird command, it just means you're working with a string. So if your data is in a string, you use the function with an S. If you're working with a file, you use the one without it. Simple as that.
Let's make this crystal clear. On the left, JSON.load and JSON.dump. See? No S's. That's because they work with file objects. You're reading from a file or writing to a file. On the right, JSON.loads and JSON.dumps. They've got the S, so they work on strings. Think of it like the text you get back from an API call. That's a string. Easy, right?
Okay, with that rule firmly in our back pocket, let's get our hands dirty. We're going to grab a typical network config file written in JSON and see just how easy it is to pull it into a Python script so we can start working with it.
Now, I get it. A file like this can look a little intimidating at first glance. You've got these curly braces and square brackets all over the place. You have a main object, and inside that, you have lists of other objects. It's this nested, layered structure that we need to get comfortable with. But watch this. Look how incredibly simple it is to pull that entire complex structure into our program. Just one command, JSON.load. And remember, no S because we're loading from a file. In that single line of code, Python reads the whole thing and stuffs it into one single object in memory for us.
So here's the million-dollar question. We've loaded it, but what is this thing now? Is it some weird special JSON object that we have to learn a whole new set of rules for?
Nope, it's just a Python dictionary. That is the absolute magic of it. The JSON.load function automatically translates everything into Python data types we already know and love. The JSON objects, they become Python dictionaries. Those JSON arrays, they're just Python lists. Suddenly we're on home turf, playing with tools we already know how to use.
And that brings us to maybe the most important practical skill you'll learn today, the drill down technique. How do we pinpoint one specific piece of data that's buried, 3 or 4 layers deep inside this thing?
We're going to take it one step at a time. We start with our main object, our dictionary. To get to that list of interfaces, we just access it using its key, which is interfaces. Bam! Just like that, we've zoomed in, and now we're holding just the list of interfaces.
Okay, now we have a list. So how do we get one specific item out of it? Well, you know how to do this. We just use its index, its position in the list. In this case, we're grabbing the item at index 1. We've just drilled down another level and isolated the single object for that one interface.
And here is where it all comes together. We can chain these moves. We can put it all together into one single powerful line. You can see we're creating a direct path. Start at the top, dive into the interfaces key, grab the item at index 1, and then pull out the value for the IP key. It's like giving your script a set of GPS coordinates to find exactly the data you need.
So look, if there's one thing to remember, it's this. Do not panic when you see a big, messy JSON file. Just break it down. If you're looking at a dictionary, you use a key. If you're looking at a list, you use an index. You just follow the path, one step at a time, until you get what you need. That's the whole game.
Reading data is one thing, and it's super powerful. But real automation, that's about being able to change things. So let's look at the complete workflow. Read a config, modify it, and then write those changes back. The whole automation workflow is really just a simple 3-step dance. First, you load the data from the file into a Python object. Second, you use your Python skills to change that object while it's in memory. This is where all your logic happens. And third, you write that updated object back out to the file. Read, modify, write. That's the loop. And once that data is loaded, modifying it is a piece of cake. Seriously. You can change existing values, like flipping enabled from false to true. You can overwrite things, like updating a description. You can even add brand new key value pairs, like an MTU, that weren't even in the original file. You're just playing with a regular old Python dictionary. And here's the proof. On the left, we've got the original config for that interface. And on the right, after our script did its magic, you can see enabled is now true. The description is changed, and that new MTU field is right there. The changes are locked in and ready to be saved.
So how do we save our masterpiece? We use JSON dump. Again, no S, because we're writing to a file. But here is a pro tip, and trust me on this, you will thank me later. Always add indent equals 4. This one little argument tells Python to write the file with nice, clean formatting, which makes it a million times easier for you or anyone else to read it later. And that indent trick is an absolute lifesaver for debugging too. You know how when you print a big dictionary, it just vomits out a single unreadable line of text? Well, instead, use json.dumps with an S for string and that same indent equals 4 argument. It'll pretty print that data structure right to your screen so you can actually see what the heck is going on. It's a game changer. Let's just pause for a second and look at the toolkit you're building. You started with the basics, variables, lists, dictionaries, then you learned to handle simple, flat data with CSV files. And now, today, you've added the skill to read, navigate, and even change the complex hierarchical data that really powers modern networks. This is a massive leap forward.
What this really means is that you now have all the raw materials you need to build some seriously powerful automation tools. You can pull live data from an API, make sense of it, make smart decisions based on it, and then push a new configuration right back. You can now speak the language of modern networking.
So I'm going to leave you with this question. Now that you can read and write the native language of network APIs, what are you going to build first? What's that tedious, repetitive task at work that you are just dying to automate out of existence? The possibilities are wide open.